Good evening, and welcome to today's Tropics for September 14th, 2020. Please note I am not a meteorologist, and this video is just a collection of my thoughts and opinions about the storms I'm talking about. And for any decision making, please consult the National Hurricane Center or your local officials. So today I'm looking at Hurricane Sally, which is currently in the northeastern Gulf of Mexico, and also Tropical Storm Teddy, which is currently in the central Atlantic. So looking at Hurricane Sally right now, well, definitely gotten a lot more impressive. It coupled with its mid-level or center earlier today, and so it's shifted a bit east, and it's starting to slow down as was expected, and will probably move pretty slowly in the next 30 hours, which unfortunately will present some extra risks along with the usual types of risks you see with a passing tropical cyclone. So you can see it's pretty obvious. There's pretty obvious spin, so it's definitely gotten itself pretty axisymmetrized, and that has facilitated the beginnings of an inner core that's trying to build in. However, there's a dry air in import region. You can see it kind of coming in here, and the core is trying to keep that out of there. So I'll see if it does that. There, given there's some part of it, it does seem that it will do that, especially with the HWRF model is actually showing this, and it shows it kind of uh, not really affecting the inner core too much, but I'll definitely have to see what it does tonight uh, and try to see if it strengthens. Hopefully not, but anything could really happen in terms of that. Along with that, you're seeing the continuation of that generally westerly mid-level shear. It has pretty good upper level outflow. However, that's not the only level to look at. You can see some of the thunderstorm tops getting advected under that outflow. So that is a sign of mid-level shear, and that's something that Sally has been dealing with for quite a while, and it is continuing to do so. So that may interrupt the core, but so far it's been doing well today. However, the intensification has paused. Looking at the infrared imagery, yeah, you can see the existence of a couple of hot towers. For example, this one over here, and another one to the northeast. So those are wrapping around circulation. Not really a huge surprise. You tend to see that with systems like this, and you can also see that warmer convective area. So there's less thunderstorms here, and that is due to the dry air coming into the circulation. At the same time, it does seem that it's weakened off or weakened a bit in terms of winds, not really pressure. Probably because the convection has become less deep, and therefore the winds can't mix down quite as efficiently at the surface. So you're getting a bit weaker. But if it does end up having deep convection over the center again, you probably see winds come back up, especially with the pressure being relatively low. Looking at the radar for Sally, you can tell that there's actually this dry air area that is starting to try to get filled in. And I'll trace it out here. So there's this drier area where there has been less precipitation and thunderstorms, but you can see recently there's been a few cells that have come up here. So Sally does seem to be trying to moisten that area so that the dry air can't really penetrate much further into the circulation. So that's something that would keep it from really affecting the core too much and would allow it to strengthen. And here we have a kind of primitive inner core here. You got some of the eye wall. The southern side is generally open and weaker. However, something like recon data is definitely a better thing to look at to uh, to get an idea of the strength of the eye wall on the southern side, because while it is weaker, the radar imagery is overdoing that pretty badly, because it is getting kind of far from the radar beam. So that beam goes way up in the atmosphere, and so it tends to make the southern eye wall here, in this case, look a lot weaker than it really is. Looking at recon data for the storm, you can tell definitely the winds have come down a bit. You're not seeing as strong winds as there were even earlier, and that is Probably as a result of the less deep convection, so it's harder for the winds to mix down to the surface. So it's not too much of a surprise that you're seeing weaker winds even at flight level due to this. It's also quite easy to see the dry air import region, both on infrared imagery here, but also with the winds. The northeastern side in the cyclone traveling in this direction slowly eastward tends to be more the north side, especially north, or especially parts like the, or generally the north. But so far we've seen the northeastern quadrant tend to be stronger, and you can see hints of that trying to happen with these hurricane force flight level readings a bit ago that were pretty far from the core. So that would suggest you'd see them coming up and down here. But the problem is there's less convection here, so that has produced almost broad-looking area just because there's weaker wind as a result of less convection in the area. At the same time, we're seeing this area, which tends to have weaker winds, has stronger wind because there's more convection over the area. However, it's not really as huge effect on the winds with the storm motion because it is moving pretty slow, as you can see here, uh, very slowly off to the west, and so it is evidently getting stuck in its very slow flow regime that should continue for the next couple of days, and unfortunately lengthen the impacts that Sally will already have. So it's stayed pretty much steady state from this afternoon till now. It's at about 988 millibars. Looking at this drop zone, which suggests that that is the minimum pressure. So hasn't after it briefly rapidly intensified earlier, it seems to have stopped doing that. It's just pretty much steady. So hopefully it doesn't intensify too much, but conditions do favor some intensification, at least from here. But luckily, we're not seeing continued rapid intensification, at least at the moment. Conditions in the near term should be relatively conducive for Sally to continue, allow it to intensify a bit before it makes landfall. However, into tomorrow, it looks like that'll start to be, or it'll start to get harder to actually start intensifying again, or continue, depending on what it is doing by then. Because as it gets nearer to the troughing to the north, it's going to end up on the north side of this upper or upper anticyclone here, and as a result, it's going to be hit by some westerly wind aloft. So this will add on to the mid-level shear. So it will start getting sheared on Tuesday, it looks like, and that might keep it from being very strong into landfall and rapidly intensifying. At the same time, its slow movement will also means it might start upwelling the shallow water around it, which would also keep convection from being deep and making it stronger with that latent heating. So, what is keeping it stalled out or very slow? It's actually getting caught between two troughs. There's one as a result of an upper low from that's benefiting from Hurricane Paulette's outflow, actually. But this manifests itself in the mid levels, so it's giving Sally some northerly flow that's pushing it down. Generally, I'd say south southwest. But then there's another trough that out over the United States, and that's parting some more southwesterly flow over it. And as a result, it's not really moving a whole lot. It's getting more steered by the general ambient ridging, but that even is weak. So it's just going to slowly move around until eventually some more ridging starts to get going to the east of Sally, and that would get it to start moving a bit more uh, to the north and east. And looking at the official National Hurricane Center forecast for Sally, you can see it's moving quite slowly. May not even make landfall until early Wednesday, so it has at least another 24 hours or so over water just because of that slow movement. And you can see it slowly curves until it starts moving generally west or east northeast. So uh, there are some warnings up as wind will be a threat from the storm because it is likely to be a hurricane and possibly continue strengthening a little bit. And so as a result, there are some more warnings right now. There are tropical storm warnings to the east on the Florida Panhandle, but the main region that's looking to be impacted, which is the coast of Alabama and Mississippi, along with some of Louisiana, they have hurricane warnings as the core might pass by closely to that area. And with the system in this region, for prolonged area or prolonged amount of time, you're going to have a lot of easterly wind, especially in this concave region, which is going to pile up a lot of water that's going to have trouble escaping with the strong easterly winds. And as a result, you're going to get pretty high surge, possibly up to 10 feet or so, 10 or 11 feet, especially in between Ocean Springs, Mississippi, and the mouth of the Mississippi River. But there is going to be dangerous surge around this area, and given the slow movement of the storm, you might have this stay in place for a while. So you might have a couple high tide cycles that there is this. So the low-lying areas definitely will need to worry about some of that flooding as a result of the surge. And at the same time, as is there a threat with pretty much any slow moving tropical cyclone, no matter how weak or strong, there's going to be a lot of rain that's going to be dumped on wherever it is passing close by to, and even way outside the cyclone center. So you could see several inches, even as far out as the Florida Peninsula, especially on the eastern side as it starts to get sheared from the west. So definitely flooding is going to be a very large impact from the storm as a result of surge and flooding rain. So if you are in a low-lying area that floods easily, definitely be prepared for that. And if you need to, or if you need to, you may need to evacuate. But definitely heed the warnings of your local officials and the National Hurricane Center. Now let's take a look at Tropical Storm Teddy. So this one is currently in the central Atlantic, and right now it's not a huge threat to land, at least imminently. But given some trends and some extrapolation in a way, it's definitely worth keeping an eye on the system for potential land impacts down the road. But so far, it's not too much of a threat, and again, something more to watch and just be prepared, especially at this time of year. So it looks relatively healthy. You have some convection wrapping around it, but one thing that's to note is a lot of the convection is weighted to the south of the actual center, and while there is a bit wrapping to the north, especially as it starts getting stronger and you have more curved band or curved banding, it's still definitely apparent that there is some northerly shear or northeasterly shear or something like that. So that is keeping it a little sheared, and that's making it so that the low level center can't really travel more north as it's forecasted to. As a result, there have been some shifts south and west, and if these are allowed to continue, it might start getting close to the northeastern or northern Lesser Antilles Islands. So it's definitely something to watch, but right now not a huge threat. Uh, We'll have to see when that shear vector starts to decrease and also be less northerly. That looks like it'll start doing that into midweek as it strengthens, start lifting north. But it's definitely crucial to see when that happens because that'll stop the southwestern trend. And by then we'll see if it will try to approach the islands. It doesn't look like it at the moment, but it's never a bad thing to keep an eye on it if it's near your area. So looking at the track forecast too, uh, it it's expected to start traveling a bit more north and eventually get on the western side of this upper or of this high pressure ridging. So as that happens, it'll start traveling a bit more north on the western side of that as usual, and eventually as it goes north, it'll interact with a trough, possibly strengthen a bit as it goes with it, and curve out to sea. But uh, there's there are some possible land impacts. Looking at the official National Hurricane Center forecast for Teddy. So far, right now, it's expected to stay offshore and not have any major impacts except for possibly swells to some of the islands. So hopefully, we have it curving mostly harmlessly like this. You'll notice that it is expected to strengthen, and that makes a lot of sense given that it is going to have low shear and higher sea surface temperatures as it gets more to the western Atlantic. So it does look like it'll be a major hurricane into the late week. Uh, so it is something to watch right now, but in the next 5 days, it doesn't look like it'll affect many land areas. Uh, it's definitely too far at this point, but maybe given its heading here, possibly this may need to keep one wary eye on this in Bermuda, but it is too far out really to make any confident calls about that. And at the same time, as you tend to see with some recurving cyclones, Atlantic Canada can also get impacts from there, but it's even more early. So just something to keep an eye on right now, but no imminent threat to land at this point. Uh, Otherwise, there aren't too many notable cyclones that are uh, yet to affect land in the Atlantic at this point. If you have any questions or comments about my video, please let me know. Thanks for watching.